What up, everybody? Happy freaking Friday. We made it. It's the end of the week, and welcome to another edition of Giants Collective powered by BetUS. You can also find Giants Collective on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever else you get your podcasts. We're also uploading content on TikTok and Instagram, so you go check us out. All the links to those outlets are in the description below. If you want to become a member of the channel, there's a join button down there. You click the join button, you get custom emojis, you get monthly membership messages. Name of the outros will begin next week, and you get access to members only live chat. So that's available as well. And if you're going to listen to us on Amazon, any of those online, wherever you get your podcasts, give us a 5-star rating. Why the hell not? It doesn't cost anything to give a 5-star rating to the show. As always, Friday is pretty much the chat. If you guys have any questions, ask him up there, and we will do our best to answer whatever you guys ask. Before we get to the questions, though, did have a question for you guys because we saw it when they did the Giants Life thing, and then Joe Schoen was on Up and Adams with Kay Adams. And again, Joe Schoen's kind of deflected with Jaxson Dart. Like to me, it doesn't seem like he's like, yep, that's our guy. We believe in him. We love him. He's going to do great things. It seems like he's just, to me, hey, if this don't work, it's not my fault. I don't want the guy. This is Brian Daboll's guy. Anthony, am I way off with that?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the full clip a couple of times. I don't think that was necessarily what I took away. I think what I found more interesting than anything is that he actually gave the specific timeline of when they dialed in on Jaxson Dart. He mentioned that the Monday before the NFL draft, he called everybody in and they had a meeting with the front office, the coaching staff, and the scouting staff, everybody in the same location, and they all discussed exactly how they felt about each quarterback prospect and ultimately landed all together on one quarterback, which was Jaxson Dart, and then they made the moves to try and go up and get him in the draft and obviously succeeded. So that was the way that I read what he was saying or heard what he was saying. And ultimately, I feel like Brian Daboll's conviction definitely led the charge towards Jaxson Dart, but he was also wise to name both Shea Tierney and Mike Kafka in his explanation as to why they took Dart, because they felt that he had similar traits to what they saw in Mahomes and Allen, kind of is what he was alluding to. So he basically said Kafka and Tierney both being guys who helped develop Mahomes in his rookie season, and then obviously Daboll with Allen. So basically trying to get the point across. We've got some guys in the Giants organization who know what a good quarterback looks like. If they know what Jaxson Dart can be, then we're going to go ahead and trust that opinion. So I like that. I think that, listen, at the end of the day, every decision, the final decision lies on the shoulders of the general manager. But I think any good leader knows how to delegate and knows how to listen to the opinions of those he trusts. And I think it's actually rather impressive that Shane is able to do that. I think that's really important that he's able to take all of those opinions from those shared sources within the building and then ultimately come together and make a decision that makes everybody in the organization happy. So I actually liked his quotes today, and I thought that they were kind of, I wouldn't say inspiring, but reassuring for the Giants selection of Jaxson Dart.
Chris, what is your thoughts about the way Joe Schoen answered the questions about Jaxson Dart?
Yeah, like Anthony said, I didn't even remember that because we were talking about the quote real quick before we went live. But as he said that, that's what stood out to me too from the response. The Monday thing, I was like, wow, they really went up until 3-4 days before the draft without 100% having conviction that he was their guy. But that really shouldn't be a surprise because they didn't take him at 3 overall. They kind of said if he falls to the right spot, we'll be willing to trade up and get him. And at the end of the day, whether or not he wants to say he loves Jaxson Dart or not, Jaxson Dart is Joe Schoen's guy. Period. End of story. Now, he did the right thing. The reason that Daboll's here to begin with is because of his work with quarterbacks, and I'm sure that Daboll had a lot to do with the decision. But Joe Schoen had all the power in the world at the end of the year if he wanted to replace Brian Daboll. He stuck with Brian Daboll, probably due in large part to the fact that he thought that he could mold a young quarterback. So his decision was to stick with Brian Daboll, mainly probably due to that. And then Brian Daboll said, that's my guy. So at the end of the day, if Daboll's Schoen's guy, well, then guess what? Jaxson Dart is Joe Schoen's quarterback. And they're going to live and die with that selection, and we'll see how it pans out. That's my outlook on it.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to our production team because behind the scenes, they got our overlay up here. So those guys do a great job. Big shout out to Borna, Justin, Tori. Appreciate you guys. Just wanted to say that. Yeah, listen, man. Joe Schoen, if Joe Schoen didn't want him, I don't think they would have him. I think that Joe Schoen probably wants to take a back seat on this one because it is Brian Daboll's guy. Why he try to steal his thunder? You know what I mean? We all know that. Listen, Joe Schoen is the guy that's supposed to pick these guys. They do it as a combined unit. They obviously do a lot of, traveling and scouting and everything else. It's an all year thing. It's not like these guys stop at any particular time. This is what their job is. But Joe Schoen's job is to get these guys signed, to get them drafted, do all that stuff. Brian Daboll's job, the coaching staff's job, is to develop these guys and make them into the players that they think they can be. The fact that Brian Daboll really likes Jaxson Dart, I think that speaks volumes. And I think that Jaxson Dart, is going to – I don't want to say he's going to be great because I don't know. I hope so. But I've said this before. I think he's just in such a better situation than Daniel Jones was. I mean, Daniel Jones, didn't have success here, but it wasn't all his fault. I mean, we know that the Giants did very, very little to actually ever help him out. Having 3 head coaches in 4 years isn't helping, or 5 years, it ever was. And it's not helping anybody. Having multiple offensive coordinators isn't helping anybody. Never having a true number 1 wide receiver till his last year with the Giants is not helping anybody. So, they didn't do a lot to help him. And he got thrown into the fire, right? Eli played 2 games. You're following the best quarterback in the history of this franchise. Yeah, go ahead, kid. Take over Eli and win some games with a team that's completely falling apart around the aging veteran. You go and carry this team. Jaxson Dart don't have to do any of that. He's not following Eli Manning. He wasn't picked in the top 6. And he's going to be able to sit for a year behind 2 really good veteran quarterbacks that have a lot of wisdom that they could give this kid. Brian Daboll hand-selected this guy, so he's going to go in with a lot of, Brian Daboll is going to put a lot into this kid, obviously, because his job is on the line. He already has Malik Neighbors, and Joe Schoen's tried to take some swings at the offensive line through free agency, the last couple seasons. So Jaxson Dart has a really good chance to succeed. I am. Again, I don't ever want to be too excited because the Giants inevitably, much like the Knicks, they just know how to let you down, it seems.
Not tonight.
So I hope not, man. No game 7, please. Please, no game 7. I can't take a game 7. But I do think that, like I said, I'm very optimistic. The more I look at Jaxson Dart's body of work, the more I look at the highlights. I'm not going to say look at film because I don't study film. I just look at highlights. And, I listen to his interviews and I like the kid. I want him to be really good. I mean, obviously I do. He's a Giant and I want him to be great, but I feel like he can do it. And maybe that's just because it's Mailbag dog talking now. Talk to me in October. Talk to me after he's played 5 games in the NFL. I might have a totally different take on this, but I don't know, man. I have a good feeling about Jaxson Dart. Just don't know why.
Well, I my outlook on Dart is I have no idea what he's going to be in the NFL, but I do have confidence that he is set up very well to be successful. He has arguably the most talented wide receiver in the NFL right now on his roster. If he's not, he's top 5 for sure. And Malik Neighbors, he's got, you talk not just Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka. I mean, he was a big part of the upbringing of Pat Mahomes. Shea Tierney was part of the upbringing of Josh Allen, along with, of course, Brian Daboll. So these guys know their way around some of the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Daboll has had a reputation for being able to get the most out of quarterbacks. Giants just haven't had very talented quarterbacks here. So we'll see if Jaxson Dart's successful, but I don't think when we find out if he is or isn't, it's going to be the same talking points that it was with Daniel Jones for years, where we felt like he wasn't set up for success. I think Jaxson Dart is set up for success. And unlike Daniel Jones, I also don't think he's going to be thrown into the fire because they went out, they signed Russell Wilson, they got Jameis Winston. I don't think they're going to force him in there before they think he's ready. And we'll see what the kid's made of when he gets an opportunity. But I am confident that he is going to be set up to be successful. It's going to be up to him to see whether or not he has success.
Yeah. Well, let's hope he does. Big shout out real quick. Sean Nevin saying we becoming a member, and we appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much for becoming a member. You get all those perks that we talked about at the beginning of the show. And then I just want to put up there. He says, boom, subscribe from Fireside to Collective. Thank you.
Yeah. Huge shout out to Sean. He's in every single Fireside Giants live stream. Huge supporter of that channel. Thank you so much, Sean, for following me over here to the Collective and supporting us here as well.
Yeah. Yes, we appreciate that very much. Big Mood, answer your question. Yes, I'm doing the Knicks right after we're done here. East W says, how important is the improvement of the O-line? Do you guys think the starting five is on the team right now?
I guess I'll start. Anthony started last time, right? Yeah, I think the starting five for this year is on the team right now. I don't know if it's going to be the starting five next year and the year after that. Of course. I mean, I say it all the time. If you've ever watched my channel, I'm Mr. Offensive Line. I'm obsessed with 300-pound men. I say it all the time on the football field, of course. But there's not a more important positional group on a football team, in my opinion, than the offensive line. Of course, the quarterback is the most important position, but the offensive line is so vital, and not just an offensive success, in a defensive success. It keeps the offense on the field. It keeps the defense rested. So, yeah, of course, the offense is beyond vital to the success of this football team, both short-term and long-term. And if I had to guess right now, and this is way too early, and a way too early mock draft, I wouldn't be surprised at all if next year, if the Giants are picking relatively early, and I have no idea of the talent group in next year's class, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was a tackle worth taking in the top 7-8 picks next year, and the Giants were picking there if they would take a tackle, because I don't think we have the long-term answer there. So I think they're going to continue to try to upgrade that offensive line. But for this year, they kept it intact. They brought back the group, and they're hoping continuity. They could grow and get better, but of course it's important. It's the most important positional group on a football team, in my opinion.
Anthony?
Well, to answer the question directly, I do think the starting five is on the team right now. I don't think that the Giants are going to go out there and make any big moves. They don't have the money to. And in terms of the improvement of the offensive line, they didn't really improve it. The starting five in week 1 this year is projected to be the same as last year. And I was actually just talking about that on the Bleach Report live stream. If there is one misstep that I saw for the New York Giants this offseason, it's the fact that they didn't upgrade the starting five on the offensive line. It's the same five. It's Andrew Thomas, left tackle. It's John Runyon. It's John Michael Schmitz, Greg Van Roten at right guard, and at right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor. Same five as last year. Now, of course, there is the variable of Marcus Bowe. Can he develop? Can he become a starter at some point this season? Of course, there's also Evan Neal. Will he turn things around? Very unlikely. So ultimately, they didn't really improve the offensive line. If there's one thing they should have done better this offseason, that's probably what it was. And like Chris said, next offseason, I could absolutely see offensive line being a top priority for this New York Giants team. Whether they're picking high in the draft or not, I could see them going after a tackle, maybe in free agency or in the draft, and trying to upgrade the unit, because there's big question marks. Like, as confident as I am that John Michael Schmitz is going to play better this year with better quarterback play under center, that's still just my confidence. That's not proof in the pudding. So I got to see it on the field before I believe it. And, I think generally speaking, at best, this offensive line is going to be average, probably slightly below. So hopefully they prove me wrong, but I think the starting five is on the team because they don't really have the money to make any more moves, but I do think that starting five could change a little bit.
This is one area we actually slightly disagree, Anthony, and it's because you've been more optimistic than me about this team this year. By no means do I think we have a great offensive line. And if the offensive line stays healthy, which is a monster if, because Andrew Thomas has not been able to stay healthy, I actually think the Giants are going to have at least an average offensive line this year, because last year I thought the offensive line, when they were healthy, was adequate. I'm not saying it was great. I'm not saying it was elite. I think it was adequate. And I think with another year playing together with one another and adding a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who is a major upgrade in terms of pre-snap evaluation, putting his offensive lineman in the best situation to be successful, if they stay healthy, I think we could have a decent offensive line. But long-term, as I said earlier, I still think we need a big upgrade at the tackle spot.
Go ahead, Anthony. Sorry.
I think it'll be decent, but I don't think the ceiling is quite there. And I think the floor is kind of overwhelming. Like, there's definitely a very low floor for this. Like you said, Andrew Thomas hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he gets injured, I mean, the whole line is going to collapse again. Probably so will the New York Giants season. And then obviously John Michael Schmitz, major question mark. So just across the line, I think that if we do get average offensive line play, we'll all probably be doing backflips and being really happy, because we haven't had average offensive line play in a long time.
Yeah, I definitely, to answer the question, the second part of first, I do think the starting five is there. I don't think there's any question. Like Anthony said, we're not going to go out and get anybody at this point. What you got is what you got as far as the offensive line goes. As far as the improvement of the O-line, it's enormous, especially since you're going to have a rookie quarterback, or I guess technically he won't be a rookie next year, but he'll be a first-year starter in the NFL. You're going to want to get that kid all the protection that you can get, because if you're ever going to rattle a young quarterback, the best way to do it is by having him getting blindsided, having him getting knocked around, and having him under a constant duress where he's going to make mistakes or he's going to hurry throws. And you don't want that. You don't want that to get in his head really early. Like I mentioned Daniel Jones earlier, Daniel Jones had that problem his whole career. He was never protected. The Giants, and it wasn't just Daniel Jones. A couple of years ago, they gave up 85 sacks as a unit. 85, the second most in the history of the NFL. Right? That is inexcusable. That cannot happen. So the offensive line is incredibly important, because for all the rule changes and all the deep throws and all the electric offensive plays that happen, this game is still won and lost in the trenches. And the Giants have lost in the trenches for years, and that's why they have lost games for years. And once they improve these things, and they certainly improve the defensive side of that football this year, they're definitely going to take a major swing at it next year. I don't think there's any doubt about it. You're going to see everything's going to be focused on that offense with Jaxson being inserted and just being the starting quarterback. There's not a doubt in my mind. Whatever they have in cap space, 90% of it's going to go to the offense. I don't think there's any question about it, because you want to set him up for the best possible situation. Because again, this is Brian Daboll's guy. Brian Daboll don't want him to fail because it looks bad on Brian Daboll. So next year, I think you're going to see a big swing at it. But I do want to kind of piggyback off of this, Chris. How much can a guy like Russell Wilson improve the offensive line? Because Anthony, you mentioned it's the same starting five as last year. The quarterback was different. How much can a guy like Russell Wilson help the offensive line?
Only so much, but I think he could improve it. Like you look at Eli Manning. Eli Manning was a great pre-snap quarterback. The offensive line was awful his second half of his career. It's not like he forgot how to read defenses. So only so much, in my opinion. But I do think it could make an impact for sure. Having a quarterback like Russell Wilson in comparison to the guys that we've had there. Daniel Jones for like 5 games and then a second and third string quarterback. So it could help a bit, but at the end of the day, it could only take you so far. Obviously, it helps a little bit, though. I definitely think the upgrade at the quarterback position will help. And I think equally important, having another year playing together with one another helps. Being with the same offensive line coach year over year for another year, something we haven't really had since really Andrew Thomas has been here. We flipped offensive line coaches pretty much every year since he's been here. So all those factors is why I think if they can stay healthy, which I saw people in the chat say if, and that's a huge if. I'm not going to downplay that. Andrew Thomas can't stay on the field the last couple of years, which is alarming. But if he stays healthy, I do think the offensive line will be solid. Maybe top 13, top 14, right around middle of the pack. But it's a monster if. But yeah, I think quarterback helps, but it can only take you so far. Like I said, Eli Manning, second half, the offensive line was the worst in the league. So it's not like the guy forgot how to read defenses.
If our offensive line is in the top half of the football this year, we're going to have a winning record. I'm telling you right now. I think that's the biggest weakness.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, is that offensive line. I think that it just struggles to stay healthy. But if they can be a 13th ranked offensive line, I think they're going to have a winning record. I'm not going to say they're going to the playoffs because I don't know what the hell is going to get in the playoffs, but they'll have a really good shot if that offensive line can stay healthy and play really average. Because like you said, Anthony, I mean, he's ecstatic to have average. How much can Russell Wilson help the offensive line, if any?
A lot. I actually think he'll help it more than Chris even let on. So it's funny because Chris and I are kind of like teetering on do we agree or do we not throughout this episode. But
we might agree.
I'll say this. I'll say this though. You mentioned pre-snap how Russell Wilson will help, but I'll mention post-snap because I actually think that's even more important because Daniel Jones post-snap was the most delirious, blind quarterback that I've ever seen in my life. Like the guy had no pocket presence. He would get hit from any which way. The guy would be right in front of him, right in his eye shot, and he just wouldn't even see him or sense the pressure coming. And in fact, there's a lot of stats that back this up. If you look at 2023, obviously he missed the majority of the year, but on his 80 or on his dropbacks in that 2023 season, 80 of them were of his fault where he was pressured, which is 20%. That got taken all the way down to 11% for Tommy DeVito and 14% for Tyrod Taylor. So 1 in every 5 pressures of Daniel Jones in 2023 was Daniel Jones's fault, according to Pro Football Focus. And that's pretty significant, especially when you factor in how many times he was sacked, and PFF credited him with 5 of his own sacks in those dropbacks. And then the season prior.
If you have the PFF stats in front of you, I'm just curious. What was the percentage of sacks, and maybe you were going to get to this, what was the percentage of sacks that Russell Wilson was responsible for?
That's a good question. I'll search that up, but I'll bring this up. Going all the way back even to 2022, which of course we say was Daniel Jones' best season, he still was responsible for 16% of his own pressures, which I believe is above the league average. I think it hovers around 10%, which was 10 total sacks that he basically sacked himself 35 times. He added pressure to himself. But last season, let me go over to Pittsburgh Steelers and see Russell Wilson. So he was high too at 22%. So
wow.
But I would also be willing to bet, and I'll actually double check this, that his passing grade under pressure was a lot higher than Daniel Jones's, but I got to find Jones's. But I don't know. I mean, listen, there's some quarterbacks that play better under pressure. And I think that Russell Wilson definitely plays better under pressure than Daniel Jones. But just from the eye test as well, over the last several years of watching Daniel Jones, one of the most frustrating things for me, I remember week 1 versus the Vikings, there was a 3rd down, and he took it and he just ran straight into a crowded pocket and took a sack when he had guys open. Like that would happen all the time with Daniel Jones. So I think that Russell Wilson, not only what he can do pre-snap, but also what he can do post-snap, just sensing the pressure and getting the ball out of his hands quicker time to throw, I think ultimately it'll help the offense quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be interesting. I definitely think Russ can help the offense out a lot. And like you mentioned, Anthony, the post snap too. Just him getting rid of the ball a little bit quicker. Although he wants to take deep shots too. I mean, it's one thing if you're setting up to throw the ball deep and to take a second. It's another thing if you're sitting back there and then you check it down 2 yards. So Russell Wilson's got no issues throwing the ball deep. And I think you put a video on Twitter showing all of his deep throws last year, over 20 yards. He obviously has no problem throwing the ball, airing it out. And I feel like Malik Neighbors could have a big one this year. And hopefully a guy like Jalen Hyatt can come out of obscurity and be that deep threat that the Giants thought they were getting when they drafted him out of Tennessee. They traded up for him. You hope Wandale can have a better year. You know, he's a slot guy. He's a yak guy. That's what he's supposed to be anyway. And you hope that a guy like Russ can lead him a little bit better. And that'll allow him to get a couple more yards. I mean, they say football is a game of inches. Can you imagine what a couple of yards can do on a yard after a catch? So Russ is an improvement, and we'll see how he does. He's not the same guy he was 10 years ago, but I definitely think he can help out the offense a lot just because he's very experienced. He's very cerebral, and, you know, he understands the game of football. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying. Dolphin Storm says, Bad Duck Tane Anthony, do you think Carter will be starting over Tibbs, or is it Tibbs over Carter?
I think they're all going to play. I think they're all going to play. But at the end of the day, Abdul Carter was drafted 3rd overall. He's a transcendent player, in my opinion. I think he's the best player in this draft, as I've said, going back to like December when I was blown, or January, whenever it was, when I watched that game against Notre Dame, I was blown away that the guy was playing with a hurt shoulder in that game. And I think a hurt foot too, if I'm not mistaken. And he was incredible in that game. Like the way he popped off the TV screen, you're like, this guy's going to be a top 5 player, top 5 edge rusher in the NFL. That's how good he looked in that game. So he's starting day 1. But at the end of the day, I think they're all going to get their reps. Like Thibodeau may not get 95% of the snaps. He's going to see the field more than enough to get his sack opportunities. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I agree. Anthony, what do you think?
I think they'll both play similar amount of snaps. I guess probably Carter will play a little bit more, but I don't think there's going to be a 2 starting edge rusher duo. I think that they're going to all move around. Like I think Thibodeau, yeah, he was interviewed at a gala and he mentioned that they're going to get all 3 of them worked on the field at the same time. Some of them are going to move inside and they're just going to kind of mix and match that. They've already had a conversation about that. So I think Thibodeau is going to play inside sometimes, Burns sometimes, primarily Carter probably because he's so powerful and electric. But I think I don't want to choose one starter between the two because I think they're both going to play at least 70% of snaps this season.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know.
And sometimes a reduced workload where where it's like 70 or 75% produces better results. You look at it with the Philadelphia Eagles, how deep that defensive line was. Having more energy at the end of a game to close out a game could help both of those players. So sometimes less is more. So I certainly could see both those guys having a very big year.
I think they'll be on the field a lot at the same time. But yeah, I mean, if you're just saying one guy or the other, Abdul Carter was drafted 3rd overall to be the edge rusher. But I definitely can see all those guys being on the field. We saw it in 2012. They put 2011, they put everybody out there. All their pass rushers out there. Umanura, Tuck, JPP, didn't stop them. You find a spot for those guys. Say, go get them. Go do what you got to do, man. We know Abdul Carter's incredibly athletic. Kayvon Thibodeau certainly has athleticism to him. We know that. The Giants have a really good defense on paper. And I do think you're going to see a lot of combinations because who are you going to stop when you look at that? So excited to see those guys in the field at the same time. And to Chris's point, it's better when we don't have to play 99, 100% of the snaps because not just at the end of the game you're tired, but at the end of the year. I mean, football's a physical sport. You're going to get worn down. So it'd be nice to give these guys a little, refresher now and again and say, we're not really going to drop that far off. This guy is going to be just, is going to be able to do the job as well. So depth goes a long way in the NFL. Every team deals with injuries. So depth is important. And
as we talked about with Bobby last week, like by no means am I saying that this team is a finished product, but Bobby brought up how the draft class this year, he didn't think that any of the players outside of, I think it was just our first round pick, if I'm not mistaken, was going to have an immediate impact on this roster. And I said, but Bobby, isn't that kind of a good thing? Because that means that the Giants are starting to build more depth. They're starting to have where you don't have to throw these guys into a prominent role day one like we did a couple of years ago. So I think the depth on this team has certainly improved over the last couple of years. And obviously last year's draft went a long way towards that. And the fact that the New York Giants added a lot of pieces to that defense in free agency. But I think the depth is vitally important. I think it's only getting better. And hopefully we continue to hit on drafts.
Right. At this point, we're going to say a big shout out to BetUS for powering Giants Collective. Go to BetUS, enter the promo code YouTube150. You get a 150% match deposit bonus on your first deposit, 125% match deposit bonus on your second and third deposit, all the way up to $2,000 in bonus cash. You get the best customer service 24/7, 365, the fastest payouts in the business within 24 hours. And you also get 10% gambling returns against all your net losses as long as you stay active every 6 months. Terms and conditions apply. And when you gamble, please do it responsibly. Never bet more than you can afford to lose. We take a look at the Giants' schedule here, and still it hasn't moved. As you see, the betting favorite is for the Giants to win 5 games or less. Plus 110 over 5.5. I'll be honest. I like the over.
Well, bad though, and I think they're going to win more games than what I'm about to say. But look at that schedule, and let's be honest. And maybe the lines are already out. I have no idea. But looking at that schedule, they're not going to be favored week 1. They're not going to be favored week 2. They're not going to be favored the first 4 weeks. Do you think they'll be favored at New Orleans? It's on the road.
That's how we start the season.
Maybe it's a pick 'em. They're not going to be favored week 6, 7, or 8, 9. In Chicago, they're not going to be favored, at least as of now. Maybe that changes in season. They're not going to be favored against the Packers, the Lions. At New England's maybe a pick 'em. Like, I look at this schedule, the Raiders game, we're probably like there's like 2 games maybe where we're going to be favored. So it's hard for me, if I'm trying to be realistic, to convince myself that this team's going to win maybe more than 6 games. But we'll see. I mean, I would have said the same thing going into 2022. So that's the beauty of the NFL. That's what makes it fun.
I think we got week 14 in the bag, though. I think 14 will be okay.
We will not lose week 14. I guarantee you.
That's what you think. That's what you think, but we'll find a way.
Let's hope
someone
not.
will get hurt, or someone will get fired, or something crazy will happen.
That's
we'll
true.
find a way
So,
to lose.
if it is a really rough season, week 14 really could be a lot of stuff without question. But big shout out to BetUS for sponsoring. Wanted to get this one from Sam. He said, how much will each quarterback play in the preseason? It's a good question.
I think Dart will get 4 quarters, not in a single game, but spread out across the 3 games. I think he'll get 1 quarter in each of the first 2, and then 2 quarters in the 3rd game is kind of what I'm predicting for Dart. I think he starts the 3rd game. But I'm hoping that that's the case, because I'm definitely going to go to at least a single preseason game this year because I want to see Dart play. Like, that's something I'm planning for. I'm already looking ahead to the preseason. The regular season games are great, but like Chris just said, we're going to be the underdogs in a lot of those, and we'll probably lose a lot of those. So I'm not as excited to go. I'm super excited to go to Giants games, of course, but I'm like really excited to go to a preseason game and watch Jaxson Dart throw some of his first passes on an NFL field. So I'm excited for that. And I think he'll get 4 quarters. As for the rest of them, I'm not entirely sure, but I mostly just care about Jaxson Dart in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, if he's getting 4, there's only 8 quarters left. There's 2 other quarterbacks. So I'm kind of in line with you. I think it's going to be almost split evenly distributed. I think Russ plays maybe 3 quarters, Winston maybe plays 5, and obviously Jaxson plays 4, perhaps.
You're forgetting about the fourth quarterback.
Yeah, DeVito may do a cleanup there in the late game 3. That's true for sure.
But you also could see all 3 of them in one game, so you can't just look at there's only 12 quarters because they could still all play 8 quarters in the preseason, right? You have what? I mean, and they don't even need to play a quarter. You got 60 minutes in each game. You got 180 minutes where you can split them up. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, full quarters. I guess I out of the 12 full quarters to be on the field, I think it'll be close to evenly distributed. As I talked about with Adriana, I think it's important for Russ to get at least 3 quarters in this preseason just to get some familiarity with Malik Neighbors in this offense with Brian Daboll. I want to see him out there. The New York Giants, the last 2-3 years, as we talk about all the time on the show, they've been awful out of the gate, awful. And I think you could at least make an argument that some of it has to do with the fact that they haven't played their starters really at all in the preseason. So I would like to see the first unit. I know we're all scared about injuries, and I get all that, but I would like to see the first unit get more reps than they've gotten in years past in preseason this year.
I'll say I 100% agree with you, and I'm not scared of injuries because you can get injured on the practice field. If you don't play in the preseason, that doesn't stop you from potentially getting hurt in week 1. Like, these players should be playing. I 100% agree with you. I think it's one of the most ridiculous things that the Giants have done under Brian Daboll. I'm usually praising Daboll on the show, but this is the one thing I was really vocal about this last year, and I'll be vocal about it again this year. I want to see these players play. It's like enough is enough. We can't be coming out of the gates losing 40-0 against a division rival in week 1. Go out there, play some games in the preseason, get used to one another, and try and win some football games out of the gate. I 100% agree with you, Chris.
And forget the practice field, Anthony. Fireworks, ATVs. It's not just the practice field with the Giants. They find ways to get injured.
Pictures, no, that had nothing to do with injury, but it injured our franchise for a while. This is what I'm going to look at. I'm going to say in the first game, Russ plays the first quarter. Jameis plays the second quarter. Dart plays 3 and 4. In the second game, Russ should get almost a half. Then I think you get Jameis for like the second quarter and the third quarter, and then you get Dart. And I think maybe you get Cutlets in the fourth quarter of some of these games. And I think in the last game, we're going to see Tommy DeVito a lot in that one, and maybe a couple quarters. I don't think you'll see Wilson or Winston in game 3, but who knows? Because Anthony, you mentioned, I've mentioned that for God knows how long, that you could get hurt anywhere. The first play of the game. Oh, look at Aaron Rodgers, right? He played 4 downs. And he didn't play in the preseason, so it didn't matter. Of course, no, it doesn't matter. But you can't be afraid of getting hurt. Football, it's just the way football is. Football is a very physical game. If they get hurt, they get hurt. But I'd much rather them take that chance to come out prepared as opposed to, well, we're going to just kind of skitter through the first 3 weeks, and now we're going to work on all the stuff that we should have worked on in the preseason. Just let them play the game, man. Especially with a guy like Russell Wilson who's coming into a new situation, working with new players, new coordinators, new head coach. You all want to be on the same page week 1. Yeah. You don't want to be trying to figure it out week 1 and go, oh, that's what you meant to do. Misreads, things aren't timed up right. Guys are missing blocks. They don't understand his cadence, so it leaves a lot of false starts. That's the other thing. The offensive line has to get used to Russell Wilson's cadence. It's going to be different than Daniel Jones. And sometimes guys aren't prepared for that. So they hear a hard count, they're going to jump, and it screws us up. So there's a lot of little intricacies that go on that aren't really measured as far as like the box score goes. So play him. And my dog's getting in trouble because I just heard my wife yell at her. Cruz on. Thank you. He says, Joe needs to keep his job regardless. He had back-to-back great drafts. All the experts in 2022 thought Tibbs and Neal were great picks. I agree 100%.
I want Cruzon to be right. I'm not a guy that's trying to run Joe Schoen out of town, especially after they took a quarterback. I think there's a possibility he could be fired, but it would have to be catastrophic. I've talked about, I think Anthony's brought up this point in the past too. They would have to have like the first or second pick, because at that point you just say blow it up, bring the new GM in. You're never going to have a better opportunity to have an appealing job where they get to pick their quarterback. But outside of something like that, if they win 5 games, the team looks relatively competitive, I'm with you. I want Joe Schoen to get another year with Brian Daboll to see if they can continue to build with the quarterback that they drafted in this year's draft.
Yeah, although I did advocate to clean house at the end of the regular season, now that we've selected a quarterback and everything, I really hope that they win games and save their jobs this year. Like, I don't want to blow it up. I really like Jaxson Dart. I want to see that happen, and I don't want the Giants picking top 3 next year and moving on from Dart before ever giving them an opportunity. So, again, even though I wanted them fired at the end of the season, I would really like to see Brian Daboll as the head coach and Joe Schoen as the GM in 2026.
Yeah, me too, because it means we're moving in the right direction. I don't want to. I don't want a 2-15. Like you said, I don't want to be picking first or second. I'm sick and tired of picking in the top 5.
Yeah,
I've had it. We got another member, Raymond Roldan. Welcome to Giants Collective Memberships. Appreciate that very much, my friend. Thank you so much for that, Raymond. Rob, thank you. He says, I feel like people forgot Arthur Smith is a terrible offense coordinator. Dave's definitely can bring out way more in Russ.
It's an upgrade, that's for sure. I mean, that's for damn sure. It's an upgrade. Dave's one of the better, at least he has the reputation. We haven't seen tons of results offensively. We think it's more to do with the quarterback than anything else, but it's certainly an upgrade for sure for Russell Wilson with the OC. And, of course, I mean, well, I was going to say he has neighbors, but it's not like he didn't have anybody with Pittsburgh. They got talent there. They had Pickens last year.
He got hurt, though.
He did. Yeah, he did get hurt. So, but yeah, I agree. I think it's a massive upgrade for the offensive play caller for Russell Wilson for sure.
Yeah, Brian Daboll's got that play that Arthur Smith didn't have it. Fuck it, leak down there somewhere. Man, that's my favorite play call. Anthony, what do you think?
I even think Kafka might be a better OC than Arthur Smith. Like Arthur Smith, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. So yeah, I definitely think it's an upgrade, and hopefully Russell is able to maximize his talents with Daboll. I don't know who's going to be calling plays, though. I think that's actually a pretty good spin-off question. Who do you guys think is going to call plays? Who do you guys think should call plays? I think it should be Daboll. He's back against the wall this season, coming off of 3-14. No, you didn't call the best plays last year. Obviously, a lot of struggles, 31st in scoring, but you were handicapped by the quarterback. Go out there, go down fighting, right? Like, go down swinging. If this is going to be your last year, make sure that you were the one calling plays, in my opinion. I hope it's Daboll.
Yeah, it's tough for me, man, because I was of the mindset after last season that I wanted Daboll to take more of a CEO approach and still have his fingerprints all over the offensive game plan week to week, but give the duties back to Kafka. I'm not going to be upset either way, but my line of thought with why I wanted Daboll to take over the play calling to begin with was because I didn't think Kafka was going to be here that much longer, and I said, okay, well, get it started now so you get continuity with the quarterback position. And I kind of feel that way with Jaxson Dart. If it's going to work out with Dart, you're more than likely going to lose Kafka in the not too distant future. Then you're going to have to change play callers this next year. So if Daboll believes in himself and he believes he's as good of an offensive play caller as he thinks he is, I'm not going to be upset at all if they let him keep the play calling duties and you go down with your best shot. So I'm not going to be upset either way. But I'm leaning that he'll probably come back with the play calling duties, because I feel like if he wasn't, it probably would have been announced by now that Kafka was going to be calling plays.
It's weird because to me, I would rather Brian Daboll worry about coaching the team and leave the offensive play calling duties to somebody else, because I think it's a monumental task to do both. And ever since Daboll did take over the play calling, and again, his roster wasn't the best, his signal caller wasn't the best, and he kept getting hurt, and Daboll went through a lot of quarterbacks. We know that. But we regressed every year offensively since he became. And I'm not saying that's an indictment on Daboll at all, but I feel like if he could just concentrate on coaching the team, like being the head coach and letting somebody else handle those duties, it might take a little bit of pressure off himself.
Yeah.
But then you look at next year. I mean, I don't know what Kafka's future is, but say the Giants have an average year and Kafka doesn't get a job and he stays around. I know that if Jaxson Dart's your guy, I know that I want Kafka calling plays. I think I would want Daboll to call plays for Jaxson Dart. So, I'm kind of with you, Chris. I mean, I don't want to dodge the question. I guess it's not really that big of it. I don't care. I just whoever calls the plays, I hope the players execute them. That's really all I give a shit about. I don't care who's calling them. Just execute them. We're obviously every year you're gonna have a head scratch a play like, why did we run that play on 3rd and 10? We're like, what the hell is that? You'll have those. But
I think it's going to be Daboll, because you think back to the year where Daboll wasn't calling the plays, and reports came out in season that from within games, Daboll took over the play calling. That wasn't like officially reported, but it probably was true, because he officially took over full-time play calling the following year. I don't think he's going to have the patience to sit back and wait if the offense isn't doing the job that they're supposed to do, to not take over the play calling duty. So I think he's just going to say, no, this is going to be on me. I'm going to continue to call the plays, and we're going to see where this goes. So I'm 95%. Oh, I shouldn't say that strong, but I'm pretty confident. I think Daboll's going to be the play caller for the Giants to start the year next year. I really am.
The one thing I'll say, go ahead, Anthony. I'm sorry.
No, I just agreed. That's it.
To your point, Anthony, talking about Russell, we know that Brian Daboll's play calling is very complex, and I think Russell Wilson can handle a lot of that. And when we had Carl Banks on the show, on Chris and the Bad Dog, when we had him there, he mentioned that, Daboll, the year that Daboll got there, they made Daniel Jones a 1-2 guy. That was it. And he succeeded at that. I mean, he didn't have a great season. It wasn't a historical season, but it was his best season as a professional. We went to the postseason. He was great against Minnesota. He had a good year. They tried to give him more, and it was too much for him to handle mentally. I will always think Daniel Jones has a physical skill set to succeed in the NFL. I don't think he'll ever be an elite guy, or even I think he can be an above average guy, but his head always hurt him, in my opinion. And I think that Daboll got very frustrated with the fact that he couldn't grasp these plays. Now, I don't know. I'm not in the huddle, but it just seemed that way to me, that they gave him more to do, and he struggles, and he would get nervous, and he would hesitate. And that's his biggest problem. He just won't throw the ball. You're not going to have that with Russ. Russ don't care. Russ has been here before. Russ won a Super Bowl. Nothing phases Russell Wilson. So I think it allows Brian Daboll to open up the playbook and give him more to do. We're going to see more extravagant plays, whether it's Daboll or Kafka, whoever it is. I think you're going to see the playbook a lot better than it was last year. So we'll find out. I like Russ, man. I've always been a Russell Wilson fan. I mean, God, he's a Yankee, for crying out loud. I mean, what are we talking about here? The Yankees drafted him. Let's go, Russ. Russ went up one year. I remember spring training. He went up there. He's swinging from the fences. He just took 3 vicious cuts. It was hilarious. He struck out, of course, but it was funny anyway. Just to see Russell Wilson swing a bat. I wanted Russell Wilson to be a Giant in 2019 when there was all those rumors about him coming here then. That's when I really wanted Russ to be a Giant. Dean, thank you so much. He says, I think Russ is going to jumpstart this offense. I agree with you. When Tyrod got in, he had an impact. Tyrod definitely had no problem throwing the ball deep. He's stretching the field. Tyrod's another one. He didn't care. I'm just throwing that shit.
Nothing to lose, yeah.
I love it, though. I love that gunslinger. I'd rather the guy throw the ball 50 yards down the field and have it intercepted than throw it 3 yards down the field and have it intercepted. It's just, Slayton looked like a different wide receiver. Neighbors and Hyatt will flourish. What do you think about that?
I agree. I mean, I don't want to go too crazy on how good I think Russell Wilson's going to be.
Russell, let's ride, Chris.
Because at the end of the day, I do think he's, there's a ceiling, especially at his age. But I definitely think Russell Wilson is going to be a significant upgrade over what we've seen at the quarterback position the last couple of years. That's for sure. Based off the fact of he's got a great play caller, he's got a great weapon to throw to, and kind of what Dean just said there. When we had a quarterback in there, I think it was 2 years ago, where Tyrod really he wasn't with the Giants, of course, last year. So 2 years ago, when Tyrod was with the Giants for the 3 games we saw, Tyrod has had his moments where you're like, okay, that's why he's a backup quarterback, like the goal line play where he audibled to a run. But you saw the offense grew. They were taking more shots down the field. They were having more success. And you think about a guy like Russell Wilson, well, that's kind of been his MO since he's been in the league, right? He throws a beautiful deep ball. And now you got guys on this team like a Darius Slayton, like a Jalen Hyatt if he sees the field. We'll see if that happens. They're talking about Gabe Davis potentially coming here. And, of course, like a Malik Neighbors. So I think Russ is going to have a good year for the Giants. I'm not going to say great year, but I think he's going to have a good year. And we haven't seen a good year at the quarterback position at least since 2022. So that's something to be hopeful about if you're a Giants fan. I think we'll have solid quarterback play.
Hot take right here. Hot take. Ready? Timestamp it. If Russell Wilson stays healthy this year, he's throwing for more than 30 touchdowns.
That's a flaming hot take, and I hope you're. I'm going to say no to that only because now if he was going to play 17 games, I'd say he might. But if the Giants, and if they're in playoff contention, he will play 17 games if he's healthy. I'm just of the belief they won't be. And I think at some point Jaxson Dart comes in. So I'm going to disagree with you on that hot take. But if he plays 17 games, I'm not going to rule it out. I think it's a possibility.
Hot takes are supposed to be disagreed with.
It is a hot take.
Russ hasn't thrown for 30 touchdowns since 2020.
We're going right now. Let's ride, Anthony. It's happening.
What I'll say about this comment from Dean, the number one thing that not enough Giants fans talk about is Malik Neighbors' deep receiving abilities, because he was so good last year and everybody's like, oh, he's fantastic. But like, I don't see anybody acknowledge the fact that he didn't have any breakaway deep passes. Like the long touchdowns that he had against the Colts were short passes that he took to the house. He had a deep one. I think Tim Boyle, of all people, threw it to him against the Ravens and the Eagles. I think those are the two that he had. But even those, they weren't like, if you remember when Cruz would just be wide open downfield and, Eli would hit him and he would just take off to the races. Yeah, never Jones. Or OBJ would be wide open downfield. He would have these breakaway deep plays, and Malik Neighbors didn't have any of those last season, which just blows my mind. How did they not spring him open at all? Especially when you look at his stats in 2023 when he was at LSU. I mean, the guy was the best deep threat in college football. He had the third most deep receiving yards of any receiver in 2023. He had the most deep receiving touchdowns, the most deep receiving receptions. The guy made his living in college on the deep ball. And then last year, he caught 7 20-plus yard passes downfield. Like, that was insane to me that the Giants just couldn't find a way to get the ball in his hands downfield. He had 1,200 yards. He had 120 catches, and they all were like from 0 to 20 yards close to the line of scrimmage, which just blows my mind. So if there's one thing that I know that Russell Wilson is going to be able to accomplish this season, Malik Neighbors is going to get the ball downfield, and that's going to be exciting, because if he was that good last year with only 7 receptions, 20-plus yards downfield, imagine how good he can be this year with a quarterback that can throw the ball downfield. If he went for 1,200 last year, he could easily go for 1,300. Maybe he could do even more. Like Chris said earlier, top 5 most talented player, maybe the most talented, physically talented player at his position in the NFL. There's no reason why Malik Neighbors can't be the best wide receiver in the league with some average quarterback play, considering how good he was last year with a league worst quarterback play. So that's the number one thing. I can't wait to see Malik Neighbors play with a guy who can actually throw the ball downfield.
You want to call it a hot take? Call it a hot take. Pound for like just physical talent. I don't think there's a better receiver in the NFL than Malik Neighbors. That's how talented I think he is. That's how great of a pick I think that was by Joe Schoen. So sky's the limit for Malik Neighbors. Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. Court thinks too much. It's Tommy the odd man out. I don't see the Giants carrying 4 quarterbacks. It's either Tommy or Jameis will be sacrificed. Unfortunately, I think Tommy's going to the practice squad if somebody don't pick him up. But
I think somebody could pick him up, though. I don't think. Obviously, he's not going to be with the Giants. He's not, unless they were to trade Jameis Winston before the start of the year, which I don't think will happen. But you never know. There could be injuries. It's around the league. Maybe a team needs a quarterback, and the Giants get offered a 4th or 5th round pick. I won't completely rule it out. But outside of something like that, he won't be a Giant. But it's possible. Like, I don't think it's crazy to think a team may look at Tommy DeVito and be like, well, he's good enough to be our 3rd-string quarterback. Like, the guy's had some success in the NFL. So I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to keep him on the practice squad. I really don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm sure he'd catch on someplace, but I have a feeling he's going to be the sacrificial lamb. Nando, thank you so much, says, I cannot see where to become a member. Well, if you have an iPhone, they don't always work. So what I can do for you, you can try this. We appreciate you wanting to become a member. We appreciate the super chat. This should be the link to the member. If you want to become a member, that should take you there. By the way, if you guys haven't done so, make sure you hit that like button for us. It helps out the stream huge. Hit the subscribe button. We just passed 4,700, so we're on our way to 5K. The drive for 5, baby. Let's go. It's a drive for 5 for the Giants, too. I want a 5th one back here one of these freaking days, and soon, before I die, we need to add one of these.
We're in a couple more before we die. A couple more.
Yeah, a few more. I'm going to live as old as Jerry Jones.
Hopefully they add one more soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I'm almost 50. They ain't one in my lifetime, so that tells you all you need to know about the freaking Knicks. But in 94-99, they beat the Pacers in these conference finals to get there both times. It's set up.
I'll tell you what, Bad Dog, I was thinking about this today on the train ride to work. The Nuggets, of course, are now Game 7 against OKC.
Yeah.
if the Nuggets win that game, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We got to beat the Celtics first. We got to put them down tonight. But if the Nuggets beat OKC, if the Knicks reach the finals, they are guaranteed home court advantage because both the Nuggets and the Timberwolves had a worse regular season record. So I am hoping and praying that Denver beats OKC. Knock them out.
It would also be pretty amazing if they played Minnesota, seeing as they had that big trade for the year started.
Well, not just that, you also have the Tom Thibodeau element, who also coached for Minnesota. So
right,
Let's
talk about the next. Grim, thank you so much. He says Dart starts the New England game, in my opinion. Is that the one after the bye?
That's the one before the bye. It's the Monday night game before the bye.
I think I know Anthony mentioned. I think the bye being so late. I think if they were going to make an insertion, it would be there. You'd give them an extra week with the starters and give them the starters playbook.
Go ahead, Anthony. What are you going to say?
I think it just happens whenever they're eliminated. So if they're eliminated really early, like we were eliminated, end of October this past season? If they're eliminated end of October, he'll have all of November, all of December, and obviously the one game that we play in January. I just think it happens when they get eliminated. If they're eliminated from the playoffs, there's just no reason for Russell Wilson to play long term, right? Like, what are you playing for? If you're eliminated from the playoffs very early in the season, you might as well get your rookie who you traded up, first-round pick for, get him on the field. First of all, you're getting him experience. Second of all, which is really valuable, you're getting game film that you can evaluate him on in the offseason. I think that's super crucial, whether that's for this regime or the next regime. And then the third reason being, if this regime is eliminated from the playoffs that early and they somehow still have their jobs by the time they're eliminated from the playoffs, the only thing that's going to save them is if Jaxson Dart goes on a tear to close out the season. So as soon as they get eliminated, if they do, and hopefully they don't, hopefully Russ goes into the playoffs. I would love to see that happen. But as soon as they get eliminated, I think that is when they're going to transition to him. But if they're just hanging on by a thread, they're not eliminated, but they probably will be soon enough. The bye week, week 14, similar to when Eli Manning took over for Kerry Collins, or Kurt Warner rather, even though they were in the playoff hunt, that would be the week 14 bye week, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think ideally they're going into the season with the thought process of, well, Russ will keep us good enough where we can hang on by that thread that you just said, and we can milk it till the bye week and then give a taste of Jaxson Dart. But plans can change. Like that, I don't think that was the plan with Daniel Jones' rookie year. Otherwise, why did you bring Eli Manning back? At that point, $20 million was a good amount for a quarterback. Why did you bring Eli Manning back if you thought you were going to bench him after 2 weeks? So plans change. I think the Giants panicked in that scenario. They saw they were 0-2, and Shermer said, well, this team has very little hope. I got to start to try to keep my job. Let's throw the rookie in there and see what he's got. Not that I think it's going to happen after 2 weeks, but I could certainly see, especially with the start of this schedule, if the Giants start like 1-6 and they have like no hope for this year, Schoen and Daboll may say to themselves, well, if we continue to lose and win 1 or 2 games, we're going to lose our jobs. We got to throw Dart in there now and see what he's got. So I think the plan is to win at least 5 games before that bye so you can milk it and get Dart in there for the last 4 games. But sometimes plans explode. So we'll see how it plays out early in the year. It's important for the Giants to get off to at least a decent start if you want to be able to ease Jaxson Dart into the starting role.
Agreed. Nando, I guess the link worked. Thank you for becoming a member, brother. Appreciate it very much. Actually, the memberships are building up. I think you're like our 7th or 8th member. So we appreciate you guys becoming members of the channel. Before we close it out, I want to ask you guys this. Bring the schedule up again. One game on this schedule, Anthony, that you think the Giants will win that they have no business winning. If you had to pick one, I mean, I'm not saying that.
Before we answer this, let's label the no business winning games because so what do we consider no business winning games?
That's up to your.
Because I was going to say week 1. I was going to say week 1 versus Washington. Do we have any business winning that? I think it depends on who you ask, but I would say week 1. Because if the Giants did get this offseason right, we'll see it as early as week 1, and they'll play better and hopefully surprise. I mean, week 1, I forget who it was. Didn't the Lions lose week 1 last year? And then they went on to not lose another game until 10 weeks later. Sometimes in week 1, you see teams, really good teams, they just kind of slip up. It's the first week of the season, but that hungry team that made a lot of improvements in the offseason somehow gets that underdog victory in the first week of the season. So that would be the Giants for me against the Commanders who, maybe they do go on to win 14 games, but maybe one of those losses they were just a little sluggish out of the gate, and the Giants end up winning that game that on paper they really don't have any business winning. And that would be the one for me is week 1.
All right, I like that answer. I'm gonna label my no business winning games. I actually don't think the Washington game I would label a no business winning game. I wouldn't pick us. I think Washington's the clear favorite, but I do think it's a game I could see us winning. I know they went to the NFC title game last year, but there's vulnerabilities like we talked about on last week's podcast. Their defense is not good. Their offensive line is, and with our pass rush, I could see us at least making that a game and giving ourselves a chance to win. Going into the season, the no chance to win games, in my opinion, or no business in winning games are the Chiefs, both Eagles games, the Lions game. And those would be my 4. Those would be my 4 no business winning. Now, at Denver is going to be really tough, of course. The Chargers are going to be really tough, but I wouldn't label those no business winning games. So of those 4 games, if you're asking me what's our best chance to win, I think I would go with one of the Eagles games, the home game, of course, because we haven't won in Philadelphia in forever. Because I don't think we're beating the Chiefs. I hope we do, but I don't think we're beating the Chiefs, and I don't think we're beating the Lions, and I probably don't think we're beating the Eagles. That's why I label it a no business winning game. But if I had to pick one divisional opponent, maybe we squeak one out at home against the Eagles.
I'm going to say we're going to beat the Chiefs on our home opener.
I like it.
That's the one we're going to. Their offense hasn't been. Their offense was not good last year. We got a really good defense this year. Obviously, Kansas City's defense is really good too, but I think maybe we catch them there. I think maybe we can catch them. Russ makes just enough plays, and the defense, holds them in check, and we're going to win an ugly game. I think that we can do that. Also, Russell Wilson has a really good record against, I think, Dallas, Washington, and Philadelphia. Take that for what it's worth, which probably isn't worth much of anything. But we'll
you know what? I just rethought my answer, by the way. I'm actually going to change it if that's okay. I'm going to pick the Lions.
I was going to say,
I think the fact
of the 4 you picked, that would be the one I picked.
Because they changed both coordinators, I could see them taking a slight step back this year. So I amend my answer. I'm going to go with the Lions are my no business game that the Giants could win this year.
Anthony, by the way, maybe Chris doesn't consider no business. We're winning week 1. I'm saying that too. We'll be back to where we belong. All right.
I think we're winning week 1 and we're winning week 2. I think the Giants.
Yeah, boy, let's go. NFC put on notice.
I think Anthony took some drugs before the show.
All right.
I like
we're going to end on a high note. Chris kind of lowered it down there a little bit. With that said, big shout out to BetUS for always sponsoring the stream. Really appreciate it. You can also check us out on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever else you get your podcast. If you could leave us a 5-star rating on those, that'd be great. You can check us out on Amazon. You can check us out on TikTok and Instagram as well. Giants Collective uploading content there. And again, if you want to become a member, just click the join button and you're going to get all those custom emojis, the monthly member messages, your name and the outros, and access to members only live chats. So with that said, for Anthony, for Entertainer, it's a bad diggy dizzle. Enjoy your weekend. Let's go, Knicks. And we'll see you Wednesday. We out. Peace.